Marquee fight in the ever-dynamic women's flyweight division. We have France's The Beast, Manon Fiorot. She's taking on Brazil's Sheetara, Mayra Bueno Silva. The Beast isn't an original nickname. Sheetara is, but it's kind of weird. I'm really looking forward to this fight, and it's one that should have taken place a couple of weeks ago. Unfortunately, Manon Fiorot and her team seem to have some COVID issues, so ultimately we get it on October 16th, and I'm really glad we'll be able to throw it back to the prediction that we made before the originally scheduled fight just a couple of weeks ago. We'll update those odds and make a final pick and prediction on this one. So let's throw it on back to that video. And I absolutely love this matchup because you're just taking fire and pitting it against fire, and the odds are a lot closer than that co-main event. And I love this one because for Manon Fiorot, former The Fighter champion with EFC, and yeah, EFC, their logo looks a lot like the UFC, and they have a show like The Ultimate Fighter that they just call The Fighter, but Manon was able to win that, then win the belt. She goes over with UAE Warriors, capitalizes on great opportunities in 2020, ends up in the UFC. To say that she's one of the most exciting fighters in this division, is that fair?
Oh, without a doubt. She is very unique in this division because she's not just an aggressive puncher that then gets knockouts. She's a technical knockout artist, and that's not something that we have very many of in the whole of the UFC. Like, Santiago Ponzinibbio's won at 170. Weird name that I thought of, but still, I would say Manon Fiorot kind of fights in that style. Many fighters at this weight division, or many prospects even, look at Macy Barber, for instance. She can get knockout wins, but it's a lot of wild looping hooks and just her being aggressive. Manon Fiorot can wait behind the jabs, set up combinations, throw her kicks along with her punches. Like, she's not only a very exciting prospect, she's a legit prospect who I see with a very high ceiling in this division.
She has a great opportunity to hurt fighters when she's even on the back foot. We rarely ever see that, but when she's moving forward, she's like the Maria Sharapova of MMA because it's a lot of ha. But the other thing that she does great, a great side kick to the body. You see that work with great effect in just about every single fight. She also throws those great combinations. My favorite shot of hers, and I had to write it down, that left straight to go with those kicks. Oh. It's like, oh, I'm already thinking about the kicks. I know they're coming because they can come. It could be a question mark kick. It could be a prodding kick to the side, to the liver. It could be a shot to the thigh. It could be a shot to the leg. You have to think so much. And then she throws her left hand out there. It's like, holy smokes, what are we dealing with here? Well, now she's going to be taking on Mayra Bueno Silva, a fighter who has flames tattooed on her arm, which is so 2000 and late. But you also have to worry about her because she's a shoot-to-box fighter. And, of course, you're going to see Gloria DePaula in her corner, who's also in the UFC, has a fight coming up of her own. But for Bueno Silva in the UFC, she beats Mayana Souza over on Contender Series a very long time ago. Comes in off the bat and submits Julian Robertson. Now, in 2021... that might not come as a surprise. But back then, it was like, wow, Mayra Bueno Silva, this is something special. She then loses to Marina Moroz. Okay, you can get out volume by Moroz, and that's what happened. She comes back out and submits Mara Romero Barella. That's halfway impressive. Then in her last fight, it's a majority draw against Montana De La Rosa. And I had to go back and watch that fight to really understand why. Because to me, Mayra Bueno Silva won that fight. And to a lot of people, she won that fight. Except she lost a point for an egregious fence grab in the first round. That's why it's a draw. If that didn't happen, Mayra Bueno Silva would have won that fight. The judges' scorecards, 2 28-28s, 1 28-27. Diego Herzog would have beaten Martin Sano earlier on when I was talking about these fights. Mayra Bueno Silva would have also beat De La Rosa if it wasn't for that fence grab. And the other thing for Mayra Bueno Silva, like the stats maybe don't paint a great picture. And she's had a little bit of a UFC run. Again, that's going to count that fight that she had on Contender Series. You look at it, she's never been able to get a takedown, but when she's on the ground, that's when she's really slick and slippery, and she's going to attempt a lot of submissions with just brute force and strength. The other thing, negative strike differential, which isn't great, but a good strike accuracy. I never bring up strike totals anymore. 2-3 years ago, Fight Night picks, sure, I used to do it all the time. Manon Fiorot, so far in the UFC, has video game stats in 2 fights. She finishes poor Victoria Leonardo, and then she's supposed to fight Marina Moroz, so we would have had that connection. Moroz out, so on short notice they bring in Tabitha Ricci, who didn't stand a gosh darn chance, and she just teed off and made her nose look like a stick of butter. So for me, I love this fight because you get fire, and I love those matchups. And at 125, Finishing abilities, maybe not there for a lot of fighters. Both of these fighters can finish fights, and that's what makes this one so much fun.
And just to expand a little bit more upon Mayra Bueno Silva's submission ability off her back, like, just go back and watch Julian Robertson fight. That's how Bueno Silva gets her win. Because you have to remember, Robertson was just coming off of choking the life out of Molly McCann, and it was disgusting when it happened. So people just kind of figure, like, wow, that is the jiu-jitsu ace for the division. And then Bueno Silva comes in, and she's like, no, Dikembe Mutombo style, and gets an armbar off of her back from her guard. It's so hard to get submissions off your back at the UFC level, and the fact that Bueno Silva was able to do that against another primary grappler just speaks volumes about how good of a grappler Silva is. My big issue with this fight, though, is that not only does Bueno Silva lack the wrestling to get Fiorot down to the mat, I don't love her ability to close the distance either, or to strike on the outside. I really do feel like this fight's going to be Manon Fiorot setting up her combinations over and over and over again, because for Silva, I just don't know what her plan B is. I know what her plan A is. It's going to be to try to drag Fiorot down to the mat. But if she's not able to do that, I don't think she's going to be able to outstrike Fiorot for any period of time in this fight. So she's not able to at least get into a grappling sequence. I just don't know where Silva's going to be able to win her moments or her rounds in this fight.
Well, and it's tricky because for Silva, she doesn't have to kind of take the fight to the mat herself. She can get taken down and then really kind of work her game either way. It's almost like, and it's a watered-down version. It's almost like a Mackenzie Dern. Okay, if the fight's on the mat, I can still have success here. When I throw my hands and I throw in combination, I have a lot of success. But that's it. She gets hit a lot, too. And for Fiorot, she's shown a propensity not to get hit. She's good in the clinch. And then if we go back to her fights with UAE Warriors, she fights a Canadian pure grappler in Corinne Laframboise. And then she gets the fight to the mat, and I went, oh, this is bad, because Corinne's record's not good. But she is a very, very good grappler. And Manon has a lot of success there, and out of some of her other fights, like, okay, I don't worry about her as much as I would out of a pure striker. She's somebody that had so much success on the IMMAF scene. We've seen a lot of different guys and gals that have had success there move up through the ranks, and then boom, you're a great fighter, or you're burning the candle at both ends. You burnt yourself out as an amateur. So you get either or. All right, so the COVID stuff kind of scares me because on a scale of 1 to 10, it's really hard to tell how it's going to affect anybody. So that's why this one scares me away from a bet on the fight, because you just don't know what you're going to get. But what I do know is that Manon Fiorot, if this was like an old-timey saloon, she busted through those doors. She beats Victoria Leonardo by knockout. She beats Tabatha Ricci by knockout. But they were never going to be ranked fighters in the UFC. And for Tabatha Ricci, especially not at 125. So it's been really lower level of competition, but incredible knockout wins that we don't normally see in this division. For Mayra Bueno Silva, I think on her best day, honest to goodness, top 10 fighter in this division. But the trouble is, it's been up and down and up and down. She beats Jillian Robertson by submission back when that was a big deal. She loses to Marina Moroz and gets out volume. She submits Mauro Romero Barella, and then she has a draw against Montana De La Rosa. So I really don't know where the ceiling is anymore, because in 50-50 positions, Bueno Silva's kind of struggled, but she has that inner back pocket. You know, you're going to have Gloria DePaula in your corner. You do train at Shoot the Box, so this should make for a very entertaining fight. I'd love to get your final thoughts on this one.
Mayra Bueno Silva is a classic example of a great jiu-jitsu practitioner whose wrestling just hasn't quite caught up to where her overall grappling is, and that's why I like Manon Fiorot quite a bit in this fight, because she not only can defend takedowns in a traditional sense, what does she also have to her benefit? Great footwork. And footwork, we've known, is one of the best ways to defend a takedown. It's like what they say. How do you get out of X submission? You just don't get into it in the first place. How do you avoid takedowns? Don't let your opponent get close enough to begin with. And Fiorot's footwork, I really do think, can be used not only offensively to get in and out of the pocket, but can be used defensively to defend a lot of the takedowns from Bueno Silva. So I like Fiorot quite a bit in this division. My real big point about her is, there's no one in this division that anybody thinks has even a small chance to beat Valentina Shevchenko right now. But Manon has a tiny glimmer of hope. I'm not saying she's going to go on and knock out the champ in like a year, but in a division that needs fun challengers and needs people to be brought up the right way, I really do think that if they market Fiorot in a correct way, and if they do build her up, it's sort of a Bellator slow burn kind of a way, I think she could be a top 5 fighter. I really do. You don't have performances like she does in the cage and just be sort of a flash in the pan. We don't see finishes at this weight division ever, and she's going out there getting them with combinations, with single shots. it's not, they're not skill sets that you see demonstrated at the weight class all that often.
The odds for this one, Fiorot open is still about a -220. For Bueno Silva, she opened a +175, in and about there. The total votes on Topology, 743 of them, 92% Fiorot, 31% by decision, 61% by knockout. For the 8% that have Bueno Silva, 42% by decision, 35% by submission. I see Fiorot winning a decision here if she's at or around 100%. But again, that whole COVID thing scares me off from betting on this one. I would just stay away from it because you never know what somebody's going to look like. I know on her best day, she can absolutely flatline fighters that are nowhere near the top 15. Bueno Silva's in that 20 to 15 category, and on her best day, she's beating fighters from 15 to 10. But when I look at this one, I go, Fiorot, okay, can she beat Joanne Calderwood? Can she beat Jessica Ai? Can Manon Fiorot go out there and beat Lauren Murphy? Like, those are the questions I'm asking myself. When I'm thinking about Mayra Bueno Silva, I think, okay, can she beat Jillian Robertson again? Can she beat Montana De La Rosa in 6 months? Like, that's the way that I look at this fight. And when I look at their styles, I think, again, yeah, you're right. The footwork of Fiorot, the combinations and the elusiveness, that's what wins it out for me. I know I talked everybody's ear off about the Corinne Laframboise fight, but that's what kind of strengthens my pick on Fiorot in terms of her groundwork. If you can survive against an accredited Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt like that, I think it's gonna pay off in strides as she moves up the rankings in the UFC. So for those reasons, I've got Fiorot here, but again, the hesitancy from the little 2-week layoff and the reasons around it, I kind of worry about it that way.
I'm still like Fiorot.
Both of us going with France's Manon Fiorot to get the win. Can't wait for the fight and the rest of the fights on this card. Sanchez taking on a tough out Bruno Silva. Wright versus Marquez. Who knows what's going to happen? Love these fights. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, as we always say. Let's get into it.